It's time for the mic drop. I in each show going deep on one topic affecting our community and hopes we can all learn a little more. Now, early this week, I received a message on Twitter from user eHey2K that read, "Hey Reese, the man featured here and in an upcoming book just passed away. He was my mother's neighbor in DC. He was the last known child of a man who was a slave in the Civil War. That means the Civil War was just 2 generations ago in his eyes. Good open mic topic? First of all, let me thank you profusely, eHey2K, and in fact, a frequent contributor to the show on Twitter, so shout out to you. Yes, this is a good open mic topic. In fact, this is a great open mic topic. Now, the man featured here is Mr. Daniel Smith, an extraordinary man who lived an extraordinary life. One that gave him a front row seat to our nation's highest triumphs and our unimaginable horrors. The child of 70-year-old Abram Smith, an enslaved Virginia man who found his freedom via the Civil War, Mr. Daniel grew up hearing stories of the terrors his father witnessed and endured.
Father said you could hear him screaming and crying at the whipping post.
Screaming and crying. Very rough stuff for a child to hear, but it came with a father's words of strength and wisdom.
My father never allowed you to talk negatively about America. He grabbed me and shook me. He said, "You have nothing to cry about. This is America. We came from the strongest of the strong. We survived the ships." He gave me a signal to be strong and to survive.
That's a strength that Mr. Daniel would carry from a hard-scrabbled childhood filled with discrimination into an adulthood where he did far more than just survive. Drafted after high school, he served as a medic in the Korean War, acquiring the skills needed to save the life of a drowning truck driver when he returned home. Now, that was a triumph that was tempered by the tragedy just a few years later of not being allowed to perform CPR on another drowning victim, a young white woman, by a police officer who Smith realized would rather see the woman die than saved by him. And that would be the story of his life. Unimaginable highs tempered by sickening lows. He took up civil rights work after he and a Jewish friend stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and listened to Dr. Martin Luther King talk about his dream. And that was work that led him to a friendship with John Lewis, marching with Dr. King and running literacy and anti-poverty programs in Alabama. The work also forced him to run for his life, chased by a carload of white supremacists on a dark country road. Highs and lows. He settled here in DC, raising a family while working in the government to help the underserved here and abroad. He would meet Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and he stood in the crowd with tears on his face as President Barack Obama was sworn into office. Just imagine that, hearing firsthand stories of the Civil War and telling firsthand stories of Barack Obama. He would witness the tragedies of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, and he witnessed the multicultural movement that grew out of them. He saw the turbulence that followed it, the insurrection, but he never lost faith in what this country could be and where it could still go. Now, we lost Mr. Daniel a few weeks back, and we're indeed lesser for it. A link to our rich history is gone. He was working on a memoir, and hopefully it'll be published soon. But you rest easy, sir. Yours was a life well lived.